It seems obvious the importance of effectively responding to customer and prospect questions in B2B, both offline and online. Yet there is often a lot to be gained here, especially in the digital age, in which the customer quite often completes up to 2/3 of the customer journey autonomously, i.e. without the involvement of an SDR or account manager. Marcus Sheridan developed They Ask You Answer as a method for better selling swimming pools and wrote a book by the same name. Before you think I'm not in the pool or hot tub business, listen to the insights of They Ask You Answer. After all, Sheridan also successfully applied this philosophy in several other industries through his marketing agency. Enough reason for a conversation with Danielle Navas-Brandt, who translated this book and demonstrated through a number of case studies that this marketing and sales philosophy also works quite well in the Netherlands and Europe.
Danielle, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. And we're joined by Fireflies.ai note taker Daniel. Daniel will be making the automatic transcript of this video call. Thanks for taking the time and discussing, reviewing. Where's the camera? They Ask You Answer.
Yeah.
Written by Marcus Sheridan, translated by yourself into Dutch, and also you've built some chapters to it. So good on you. And first of all, could you explain in brief terms, because of course it's been 15 years that Inbound was launched, that HubSpot made its way into the world. It sounds very much like inbound and content marketing. That's also what Marcus Sheridan refers to. However, Taya, They Ask You Answer, is slightly different from the inbound philosophy. Can you pinpoint what the big delta is?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that the result is the same. So if you're doing They Ask You Answer, if you're implementing Taya, you'll be getting better leads, inbound leads. However, the philosophy behind inbound marketing is more about, creating contacts, creating forms to get more contacts, to get more leads in, and to nurture those leads. Whereas They Ask You Answer is firstly and foremost centered around the customer and really thinking about what are all their questions, their frustrations, their fears, and how can you answer those and how can you talk about those to help them make the right decision for them. And yes, you're creating content for that. And yes, you're putting all of that online, but it's mostly customer centric. So it's very important to be customer centric and to answer all of their questions and not really have in mind, okay, is this going to produce a lead for me?
Right. And in our previous chat in Dutch, you referred to that you almost need to have an obsessive philosophy towards answering those questions. Yeah. How obsessed does one have to be?
Yeah.
And how long should the obsession last?
Well, it's definitely a healthy obsession with everything that your buyer is thinking and is needing at that point. And yeah, I mean, it goes beyond anything that we've done before. So what I see a lot in B2B is we're very comfortable talking about our products and features and everything about our own, the world that we live in. But when it comes to really engaging with our buyers and really understanding what they are thinking, what they are wanting, it's quite a big gap, I've noticed. And with They Ask You Answer, you're constantly thinking, how can I bridge that gap? How can I bridge that gap? How can I get to the customer? How can I get into their heads? How can I understand what they're thinking so that I can help them make the right decision for them?
Right. And in the book, there's also a reference to the big five. And basically that's the biggest non-issues, or basically they are very big issues in the head of your customer and prospect. However, most B2B companies prefer to not address them offline or online, including what are our prices, what are the biggest issues or problems that you might be encountering in either the buying process or the actual usage of our solution, what is best in class, etc. Is that indeed the biggest hurdle to adoption for Taya for They Ask You Answer, or?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest ones. But I see more than just that. I see belief is one of the really main factors. If the management, the layer of management, C-level is involved and they're believers, they think Taya is going to help us. We really want to be customer centric. We really want to bridge that gap that we have to our customers. Then They Ask You Answer will work. So that's the first thing that needs to be in place, is that they need to believe that this is going to work. And then there's resources. That's another hurdle. Do we have the right resources, the right people in place to be able to create that content, to be able to think about what the questions are that our customers have, that our clients have, that our prospects have? So that is a big one. And then also getting sales and marketing teams working together. That's also quite a hurdle. And yes, there's also, do we dare answer all of the questions, even the ones that we think are very hard to answer, or we feel like we might not want to be answering those questions because it's, it's pretty scary to think about what pricing are we going to be talking about? Are we going to talk about the problems, the things that can go wrong when they're implementing our product or when they're using our services? Are you able to talk about it? Are you able to talk about your competitors, who are other companies in the space? Because if you're not talking about it, then somebody else will talk about it because they're going to find out.
Yeah. And perhaps it's too early still, but are you convinced of the sort of cultural openness towards They Ask You Answer here in Europe or in the Benelux? Are we open enough to adopting this framework, this philosophy, or is this very much a US centric way of selling and marketing?
I don't think it's a specific US thing. I think it's more a cultural thing, like a DNA kind of thing. Like, is your company culture transparent? Do you really want to help your buyer make the right decision for them, instead of, I want as many leads as possible and I don't care what happens, give me those leads? So really a buyer-centric organization is important to have that. And I think that's, a worldwide thing. You either have it or you don't. You either are or you're not. So that needs to be really in place in order to get the Ask You Answer going.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, there seems to be quite some opportunity, particularly in the early stage of the funnel, to adopting and leveraging They Ask You Answer.
Yeah.
At the same time, in the book, there's a reference that it really all starts with sales. Can you elaborate on that? Because it seems very much like it's a marketing and sales sort of spiel and collaboration, where the top of the funnel and middle of the funnel are the first at play, and where the first sort of benefits are to be had. Please elaborate on that, Danielle.
Yeah. So what we see is the buyer's journey is changing a lot. So about 30% is unaware that they have a problem. Then there's about 30% that is aware that they have a problem. Then there's about 30% that they're searching for a solution. So they're solution aware. And then there's about 7% that is comparing. So comparing companies with each other to make sure, okay, which one are we going to choose, or why would we choose that one? And then there's a last about 3% that's really ready to buy. That is like going to be hitting the make a call button and want to get started. So when we start with They Ask You Answer, we start at the end of the buyer's journey when they're comparing, because that's when they start talking to the salespeople. So that's the truth. We know for sure, okay, these are the questions that they're asking. These are the things that are top of mind. The big five are all kinds of questions that they have towards the end of that journey. So you do those first, you tackle those first, because that's where we see the first results. Once sales starts using that content in the sales process, we see that the sales process goes quicker. So there's a quicker start to sale. So you can see that there's results happening. And then once you're getting into the minds of your prospect and your buyer, you're going to get more and more into the top part of the journey, so the beginning of the journey, and that's where the symptoms are happening. So the more you start talking to your prospects, the more you're going to understand what is happening at the beginning of the journey, and then you can start answering questions there. So that's more of the unknown, and this is the known. So we start with the known to get the results, and then we work towards the unknowns.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if I translated correctly there, because I read it in Dutch, the book also refers to that video may be the ultimate expression of TAIA, of they ask you answer, because people ideally would like to learn visually. Is that the case? Because there's also people who would like to learn through listening or through reading and seeing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's the beauty about video is once you've created a video to answer a question or to talk about something that is specifically for your buyer, of course, buyer-centric content, you can use that video to make written content. But what we're seeing now is with the newest generations coming up, they're the ones that are video first. So the places that they go to search for answers, TikTok, YouTube, that's where they're finding the answers to their questions. So you need to be there. You need to be on video. And it's also, it gives a face to the company, and it gives, especially in the age of AI now, it gives a human touch to the company. So that's why we love video with the Ask You Answer. It's visually appealing. It speaks to the newest generation. And it's also, in the age of AI, a very personal way of showcasing your personality as a company.
Yeah. And in the book, there's a reference to a number of types of videos that one can make, including the 80% video, basically covering the 80% of questions that sales team get asked. Yeah. So why not turn those questions and answers into a video? And which one should every B2B company embrace?
Yeah, the 80% video is the first one that you should embrace. Is really take an inventory of all of the questions that your salespeople get. When I ask salespeople in general, I ask them the first meeting that you have, how many of those questions you get over and over and over again? And it's usually about 80% of the questions are the same questions all over again. So let's write those down, make videos of them, make content of them, and use them in the sales process to speed it up, because you want your sales velocity to go up. So that's the first place that you're going to be implementing that. So that's the one that I would do first. The other one that I really like is a bio video. And the bio video is about me. So I would make a bio video about me, who I am. It really gives a face to the personality to the person, and do those first for your salespeople. And those they can implement in their email signature, for example, on their LinkedIn profile. They can showcase the video, so you can use it for many different things.
Yeah. I wonder when LinkedIn is going to embrace the bio video, because of course there's now the audio introduction, like my name is Danielle Navas-Brandt or Paul Hansels-Munning, and that you have to record it a couple of times to get it on point. But there's no standard functionality there yet. So perhaps, but even looking at websites, it really seems to be the exception to the rule that even the management team or the experts are visible with a video. There may be just a small thumbnail with the headshot, and then the LinkedIn icon underneath. But so there's lots of room for improvement there. And of course, as you mentioned in before in our previous conversation in Dutch, and as you guys mentioned in the book, a video can also be used for assignment selling. Yeah. Which sounds like a very posh way of basically doing a proper qualification with your prospects and customers, really getting them to do something in advance prior to the actual demo or sales call, whatever. Yeah. What is the biggest challenge? Because it seems to be such a no-brainer. What is the biggest challenge you think in order to move them from basically just going out there and drinking enough cups of coffee on a weekly basis to applying assignment selling in their process?
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of the first things that needs to be done is that how do we measure success? If success looks like, okay, you have to drink as many cups of coffee as possible with all kinds of leads, prospects, whoever, then it's a no-brainer. That's what they're going to keep doing. Whereas if you place the metric on qualified leads or conversion, from an appointment, a cup of coffee, and that turns into a customer, if you're going to use that as your metric, then it's going to be more of an incentive for the salespeople to want to speed that up and to make sure that they pre-qualify a lot better than they are doing now. Because if you're pre-qualifying with an 80% video with content that resonates or does not resonate with your customer, then they're going to read it. The buyer is going to read that content. They're going to watch the video and they're going to think, oh my gosh, this is for me. I need to have that cup of coffee and I'm ready to sign, pretty much. Or the buyer can be like, I don't think this is for me. You know what? Let's cancel that cup of coffee because I'm going to look elsewhere. And that's fine too, because then you'll
Absolutely.
have less cups of coffee that you're drinking, but more of those people are going to say, I'm in, let's go. Where do I sign?
I was going to say, if I would have to sell the they ask you answer or the proper way of doing inbound and content marketing, I would almost frame it as moving from more leads to not necessarily more leads, but better opportunities.
Exactly. That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
Okay. When can I get certified as a they ask you answer coach? Now, Danielle, to wrap this up, our conversation, and of course there's lots and lots of rumor around the block when it comes to AI, also in B2B marketing and sales. Do you see AI as an opportunity or a threat when it comes from the they ask you answer perspective? Because the whole discipline of SEO seems to be changing. Branding seems to be on the increase. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so it's an opportunity and a threat, and let me elaborate. The threat is that we're going to be producing a bunch of nonsense, like content that doesn't matter, that nobody cares about, because we're going to prompt ChatGPT and say, hey, answer this question for me. It's going to produce something and you're going to copy paste it and put it on your website and do whatever with it. That's the threat. The opportunity is the companies that are really embracing the ask you answer and really want to answer the buyer's questions in a proper way. And of course, you can use AI as a tool to help you with that. But really answer it from an expertise kind of standpoint and really being the authority in your market, answering the question, then it's going to give you a huge head start. And let's not forget, all of these AI tools, like the large language models, are being fed with something. Like they have to be fed with content. So where is that content coming from? If you're the one producing that content and really answering the questions the right way with the right experts and the right, according to the they ask you answer manner, the chances are a lot bigger that you're going to be spotlighted in those AIs as one of the people that are giving the right answers.
Yeah, that seems to be difficult to fathom when you've grown up in the age of the blue links, with 10 or 15 links or more on a single page. But if you envisage a world where AI is basically serving you the one and only answer for you, not just from a ticket or product perspective, from a transactional perspective, but also from a knowledge perspective, of course, you want to be there. And then being more than the expert, but being the actual thought leader is the way forward.
So there's no better time to start with something like the ask you answer right now.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much for this conversation, Danielle. I look forward to meeting up over a cup of coffee or other drink sometime in the next couple of months.
Sounds good.